Uganda, good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight, we look into the status and future of oil and gas sector in Uganda. I have two gentlemen in the studio. I should say these are gurus in the area of oil and gas. Let me introduce them. I have Director Legal and Corporate Affairs, Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Ali Ssekatawa. Thank you so much for joining us, Ali, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kamara, and good evening to our listeners.
I have Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Uganda National Oil Company, Tony Otoa. Thank you so much for joining us, Tony.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for having me. It's always good to be back at Monitor. This is where it all started.
You know, sometimes you make me feel like an OB, but then I'm like, no.
This is where
we're starting the journey. We seem to have started it together. You guys, there's a lot that has been happening, and the government of Uganda promised us the oil to come out of the ground, market our oil come 2025. We're just a few months to 2025. And yet, you know, commercial oil were discovered 18 years ago. Guys, there's been so many timelines. Let me begin with you, Mr. Ssekatawa. Will Uganda be able to put her oil in the market just next year?
Yes.
Basing on what?
The project has key milestones. It's a mega project by its nature. It's a coordinated project. As I've said before here, we have the Tilenga side, we have the Kingfisher side, and we have Eco. And the three of them are integrated to make us reach first oil. So far, so good, because in terms of the project schedule, on the specific key drivers for first oil, we are on course and we have not seen anything to make us worry. But as a project of that nature, you do a plus or minus to cater for any eventuality that may happen.
I can see, I saw you adding that. Okay.
But just in case of saying the early preparation for the works, if you've been in Hoima or Bulisa or in Chikube, you've seen the early preparation for the two central processing facilities. The other infrastructure is all going on. The drilling, we have 3 rigs this side, we have another rig the other side. They all started in time. Enough wells have been, drilled, and good enough, they have confirmed what we suspected and even better underground, because, when you go into the well, it's like a lead in labor. You always have results, but now this is the time to reach there and see what actually is there. The pipeline, the feeder pipelines from Chikube to Hoima, they have already started clearing way and for purposes of laying them. For Kingfisher, for Tilenga, the other side, part of the delays were land and so on. We have overcome all, because 100% of the land is now acquired. 100% of the land in Kingfisher is acquired. Almost 97% of the land for ECOP here in Uganda is acquired. 100% of the land in Tanzania is acquired. The pipelines for ECOP, 500 kilometers, are already in Tanzania. The jetty and all the other port facilities in Tanzania are almost ready. The coating plant has started coating the pipelines. The other 500 kilometers and another 400 kilometers of pipelines are on their way. And we are very optimistic that we shall be on course to deliver first oil.
It appears in what you've just described, Tanzania is way ahead of Uganda. How come?
Yes, this is because of, it's a two-way. You see, as I said, Kingfisher and Tilenga, these ones are ahead, and then you go to the tail end of the snake. It's like we are chewing it like how you chew a sugar cane. You chew from the top and then the bottom. So the other side, because of the huge pipelines and the huge machinery and so on, in terms of the ECOP, most of the works have started from the coast at Dar, because things come by ship to Dar. The coating plant is in Dar, and all the other items. So the first parts that related to the preparation of the port, the coating plants, the insulation plants, and so on are going on. Now, when those pipelines are insulated, they are going to be insulated at the facility is 700 kilometers halfway, which is that side of Dar. Remember, the pipeline is 1,445, but we have 296 here in Uganda. So halfway is in Tanzania. That's where they are going to be coated. Then supplied halfway, 700 kilometers on both sides. So most of the works have started, but also in Uganda, many camps are being constructed and so on. And we are very optimistic that we are on course.
Okay, let me turn to you, Tony, Chief of Corporate Affairs, Uganda National Oil Company. What I know that was preoccupying President Museveni's idea about this oil thing was about building a refinery. In fact, the pipeline was like the second thought. It turns out the second thought is now the first priority. You know, are we really likely to have the oil refinery? Have we even gotten money?
Absolutely. We are definitely on course for the oil refinery. What has been happening now is conversations and negotiations with the partner that we're going to develop this opportunity with. And again, Patrick, if you went into the refinery area, Kabalega Industrial Park, and you see the developments, they all speak to what is going to happen.
So when you say we're going to get the money, because at the end of the day, do we have a contract with anybody?
What do you mean a contract with anybody?
Has anybody signed the final investment decision?
No.
Yeah, so you don't have the money.
For the refinery, that hasn't yet happened. But the conversations with the partner to support on the development of this is happening. Uganda, as a country, will contribute towards that. Just like the upstream projects, where we are saying, these are huge infrastructure projects. And because they're huge infrastructure projects, what normally happens is that the people that come on board, like Total, for instance, or Seno, for instance, are using their own money, which is recoverable at a certain point of time. Same conversations we're having with the refinery project. So ideally what's happening is getting the right partners on board to
Tony,
sign off as soon as possible.
Are you aware there has been such a conversation for more than 10 years? In fact, at one point, there's a Russian company and a South Korean company. A Russian company actually even reached a level of negotiating and signing contracts to be able to build a refinery, and turned out it had no even capacity.
So you see, in such big infrastructure projects, lots of things happen. In the course of negotiations and debating, lots of things happen. Change in prices of oil prices globally, geopolitical issues, and again, the Russian company, you rightly so, was affected by geopolitical issues at the time. So you can see that a lot of factors contribute to making a final investment decision. But what is happening right now, and I can assure you, Patrick, is that we are having conversations with partners who are going to come on board to support us with this refinery project to make sure that whatever is happening upstream is dealt with at the refinery, and the majority of it as well is evacuated using the pipeline.
The chief executive of the country, the president, must somehow feeling a sense of frustration, because his number one idea was to refine oil from here before we can even pump it out in crude form.
I'll be honest with you, we've done some tests on, first of all, the oil samples. You cannot have so many products coming out of it. So there's some products that can actually come out of it immediately, like stuff to support the plastic industry and so on and so forth, maybe a bit of the heavy fuels, but you will understand that you have to decide on what makes a lot of sense immediately. What is happening, and I can assure you for now, is that refinery is going to come on board. It's going to support what is happening in the oil fields. And again, you also need to know that our oil is very waxy. So a lot of conversations on how to deal with it. It's not a simple refinery where you're dealing with sweet oil that is easy to manage. This is very thick oil. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look at some of the samples. It's almost like shoe polish.
It's waxy.
It's very waxy. So the type of refinery, the type of investment, the type of decisions to be made are very critical in making that final investment.
Only why I'm skeptical about all this is when I look at other countries in Africa, in fact, even bigger economies that have been in the oil sector, including Nigeria, Sudan, Angola. Nigeria is only building through Dangote just, I think, last year, after more than 60 years of a refinery, I'm told.
No. Nigeria has refineries. I've been there to Port Hancock, to Kaduna. The only problem they have, Angola has, Tunisia has. The only problem the Nigerians have, and we've been there, is that they never secured the first right for the crude. And so sometimes you will find their refineries not operating. But they have two, and
what do you mean the first right for the crude?
I mean, you can produce crude and it is just
taken
away. And that's the battle we spent here, what you call HE's passionate position. It was the first battle we had to make sure. We had been to Nigeria and everywhere, and our advice was that you must have a first right of call on the products. So we secured that. When you secure that, it means that you have feedstock. So when you say, is the refinery happening? The answer is yes, because what are the fundamentals? You need feedstock, and we have secured it contractually. We have 60,000 barrels per day the moment production starts. The second, you need land footprint. That has been secured. Where land is going, where the refinery is going to be, the 5 square miles, the pipe, the route, the white product pipeline, and then Impigi here for where the facilities are. They have already been secured. Impigi secured 100%, Hoima 100%, the product pipelines so maybe around 50 to 60%. It's coming along the way. That's the second. The third is you need to do what is called a configuration study, the design and the feed. Those were completed by the last contractor. The fourth is that you need to do an environmental study and then other related studies for the pipeline. Now, those key fundamentals have been completed in the last 3 to 4 years, okay? The only thing now that remains is what you call the financial investment decision, who puts in the money. GOU...
But what you're explaining, it looks like we have a very good product. I mean, the potential investors should just be coming in, streaming in big numbers.
They are there.
Why are they dragging their feet?
No, they are there. Government said, the last time they said we have not extended the contract for this one, you say statement by the ministry. We received maybe more than 26 suitors. It's a good product. Government has itself, government of Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania committed to up to 40% shares in the refinery company. So right now what my brother Tony was saying is that we are looking for a co-investor to be able to work together, because I mean you need 4 to 5 billion US dollars, and I mean you are the man of numbers, you know what that means. Otherwise, if we had that money, we would start tomorrow ourselves, because the project is profitable. We have the feedstock. It is a project that can give us, stop our whole importation of crude, because it can supply all of our crude here, all our products and the neighboring countries. So, and it is strategic. It is just that we do not have the $5 billion, and that's all we are looking for.
Tony, there was a time when Kenya, I'm told, had a refinery somewhere at the coast. But that refinery had to close.
No, I don't think it was a refinery. What they were simply doing was moving their product from the Turkana area by trucks.
No, they had built a refinery. I think they bringing in crude since they are the coast and refining it at the Mombasa, but wasn't making economic sense for them. Will it make economic sense? Can we be able to compete? We can be able to refine our oil in Hoima. But considering the kind of investment you're going to put in, and those who have been there in the game, who have done it for ages, they can bring in their oil in Mombasa, and we are not able to compete.
I think it's very strategic. First of all, look at where this refinery is situated. We are bang on in the middle of the region. You have Congo, you have Rwanda, you have Burundi, you have Tanzania and South Sudan. I mean, all of these avenues.
The economies of scale.
Yes, I do
understand. The experience they have had. They have the sea, they can actually bring it here, and still today Brazilian sugar will cost less than Ugandan, even though it is coming from Latin America.
I will tell you for a fact that DRC, just the eastern part of DRC, can actually be a very good potential viable customer. Just the eastern part of DRC. The potential in the region is huge. And I think you can also appreciate that most of the fuel products that comes in to Rwanda, to Burundi, some that goes through eastern part of DRC, comes through the coast, Mombasa, Tanzania. Now, imagine a refinery right in the middle. The costs of moving this product to the end user are way, broken down. So, yes, it makes economic sense.
60,000 barrels will translate into what in terms of liters?
Uganda currently consumes around 36,000 barrels. So when you're talking about 60, if you the projection is that we increase by around 6 to 7% every year. So the other balance would actually be able to cover the areas it's talking about, because the refinery is just a few minutes away from Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, and so on. So the other ones you can be able to export all the white products. That's diesel, petroleum, jet fuel, paraffin, and then you can use the other byproducts for purposes of that. Then secondly, you talked about the Kenyan refinery. Yes, they had one in Mombasa, but it's an old refinery for the 1960s. When they did the math for upgrade, that's I think what you're saying, because it required around $12 billion to upgrade. But the Kenyan crude, the one they had discovered, was very minimal, close to 8,000 barrels per day. It would not sustain the refinery, and that's how it was turned into a storage facility.
Okay.
Yes.
Ali, Anthony, gentlemen, we're going to take a break. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guests tonight are Tony Otoa, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Uganda National Oil Company, and Ali Ssekatawa, Director, Legal and Corporate Affairs, Petroleum Authority of Uganda. You guys have put a spirited defense on the viability and the possibility that the oil refinery is going to be here. Let me take you back to what is going to be quick, and that's the pipeline. So it appears Tanzania has gone ahead of Uganda, but you have explained why. And after all, things are coming by on the ocean, and you have a port, and you can be able to build stuff like that. But it looks like the TAPs, the project affected persons in Uganda, not all of them have been compensated. And I'm wondering, all this time, why, Tony?
I think that is wrong information, and Ali can.
You just said we are still we are 90-something%.
Yes, 96.
Yeah. So why
the 4% we have fall in 1 or 2, 3 categories. The first is that you have missing pumps. Part of the areas we pass through, the historical Bugangaizi and all those historical areas where there are absentee landlords, and by law you cannot just pay Kamara. So we have that group, it falls in the 4%, and then we have a very small group of maybe like 1% or less who have contested the valuation and so on. And then you have people who are either dead and have no IDs, and those family disputes and so on. So they fall in that category.
That's what makes
so
it 4%.
Those 3-4% that fall in those categories. But otherwise, and those now have to go through another stage of compensation, another level. But otherwise, close to 96% are complete. But secondly, you cannot also undermine the fact that the land tenure system in Uganda here is very complex. There are over 4 tenures. You will find a lease, Milo, you will find a freehold, Vivanja holders, and the customary tenants. And therefore that, together with the unclear succession debates and so on, clearly bring a bit of complex. Unlike in Tanzania, where land belongs to the government and all the other people are just tenants on that land. So there's that clear, visible land policy question between Uganda and Tanzania.
So Tony, assuming, the oil prices, sometimes there's a lot of volatility, and we can produce our oil before we know it. Iran and Saudi Arabia and others pump their oil to the world market, and then the prices go down. At what level do you think we can still make money when the barrel of the oil goes down? What level of the price can scare Uganda? Because there's a time when it went to $40 a barrel.
Yeah.
So what have we calculated that at this level of the price of a barrel, Uganda will still make money?
Patrick, there are a lot of metrics that can be used to see whether we are going to make money or not. When FID happened, a lot of these ideas came into play, you know, looking at what could be the lowest. But if you look at the trends, if you look at the demand for oil products globally over the next few years, you can clearly see that there's going to be demand, there's going to be the need for it. It easily makes sense to have it produced. Now, in terms of what price can we go with, you know, where someone will say, I can't tell you that for a fact, because again, this is information that I wouldn't be able to have right now, but I can tell you for a fact that the fact that you get into a final investment decision point means that you have looked at all the areas or avenues that can make you competitive or create your product.
I'm asking this because it appears Uganda is going to invest so much. First, because we have a pipeline, probably the longest in the world. Two, you have waxy oil, so you have to hit that pipeline. And also, it's coming deep in from the interior. You have what you call the sweet oil, maybe from Saudi, maybe from Iraq, maybe from Iran, and we'll just put it on the sea. So I'm wondering, for them, perhaps, if a barrel goes to about $40 a barrel, probably they will still make money. For us, perhaps, it has to stay at a certain level to make money because of the investment we have put in, where it is coming from, the waxy nature, the pipeline stuff.
No, but you need to look at other competitive advantages we have. We have one of the lowest finding costs. So the finding cost is the exploration cost. As you know, we had almost 88% success. Tony was with Talo at that time, he can tell you. And that success, it means that every 10 wells that were dug, 8.8 of them were producing, and therefore that means that you spent less.
But you are hitting dry wells upon dry wells in Ntoroko. You actually had to you started from Ntoroko and it was zero.
That's the 12%. So the other one is 8%, 88%, and that's on record, public record. So it means that the finding costs were lower. Now, if you add in all the costs you are talking about, by the time you reach the international market, you're still competitive.
It's still competitive.
Yes.
And the other thing as well, Patrick, that I need us to remember is that, number one, we are probably just working around 40% of the country's potential.
Explored area.
Mm-hmm. You understand? So you have 60% that is still untapped. If you look at the northeastern region of this country, you know, into Karamoja, you'll find that it's a complete reflection of what's happening in Turkana, and there's massive possibility of having, you know, oil exploration going on in those places. It still makes sense to actually run around or deal with this resource looking into the future.
You're looking into the future. That future is likely to be fossil fuel free. There's a war on fossil fuel in hydrocarbons in the world today. Everybody is talking about going clean. What a bad timing for Uganda.
I think, in all honesty, you cannot deal away with some of these products because we are a developing nation. That's number one. We have a growing population. That's number two. I think you just saw from the recent statistics that were put out by UBOS, we're a growing population. Africa as a continent is still developing, and the need for us to industrialize is still eminent. And I think we've had this over and over all over the continent, the need to industrialize for development. So we cannot negate the fact that we shall still need this resource to support us to develop. That's number one. But we also recognize the conversations around energy transition, and that is why we are committed and part of these conversations. And how are we doing this? The energy mixers that we're talking about, but also how we are working to conserve the environment and make sure that whatever we're doing does not have that crazy impact or does not have any impact on the environment. So the whole idea of going net zero when it comes to the carbon emissions, but also going around strategies to support our climate change conversations, planting trees, conserving the environment, making sustainability the core of how we do business now, and that's a very, very important.
But you appreciate the fact that the world is moving away from fossil fuel at the time when we are taking baby steps to get into fossil fuel.
I just wonder when you say the world is moving away from fuel, because when you look at Europe,
we've been having all these COP 21, 22, and the other day 28, and everybody's talking about moving away from these things because they're harming the environment.
Yeah,
that's the war that is on right now.
Patrick, if you look at Europe today, including England recently, they have just commissioned new exploration areas. Okay? Now, that is just a clear indication that we are not yet there. Yes, we have plans in the future, but you need to understand Africa, Uganda as a country, we still need to develop, we still need to industrialize, we still need to support the development that's happening in the country, and that cannot go without such a product.
You know, talking matters environment, oil has been discovered in the most ecologically sensitive area of our country. In fact, what you've done could be development. To some environment activists, it's ecological terror. I wonder, for this resource that is finite, whether it will leave the Alberton Graben the way you found it, or even better.
I think the best technologies, the best brains all over the world, and the best interests, I mean environmental considerations have been made to make sure that the environment is left either in a better place, or they are the best, I mean there are mitigation measures to make sure that that is made. This industry, since I think 1990s, there's been exploration, and I think you've been there. They've all, I mean, you would hardly see that anything had ever happened, because things had been done, restored in a very good manner. We've taken time. You know, you were saying we made commercial discoveries in 2006, but one of the key advantages that have come out of that affluction of time is for us to understand how best to optimally explore this resource without hurting the environment. I can assure you I've seen very many independent audits, very many scientists that have come, but when they come and they find what is being done in order to have the industry coexist with nature, they have been very impressed. I can give you several, like now if you go into the park, all those rigs you see are called, they are silent rigs.
Okay.
It's like a silent disco, the one the Gen Zs use now. You can't hear anything. And they will tell you they are some of the best, latest technology rigs in the world.
You know, you talk about latest technology. It's just a few years back. America was almost brought to its knees. If you read about the Macondo spill, I'm told President Obama was not sleeping because the thing was just gushing out oil. And we are, I'm told, some of the digging is under Lake Albert. When I looked at the Macondo spill, I'm like, what if it can be brought down? If it can bring to the knees of technological advanced United States? How about Uganda?
Yes, it's
Albert,
true.
In case of a spill.
True.
Yes.
And that's why I think last year we launched the oil spill contingency plan. So the industry, what happens is that it is one of the most regulated industry in terms of safety. Almost next to the aviation. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that in aviation there are no accidents. But for each accident like Macondo that happens, it's a good learning lesson for the next. I can tell you the design of this facility has taken to effect whatever went wrong at Macondo. Macondo is a standard, you know, accident that everyone is looking at. It's not like you will not have. These measures are all in, and then at the end of the day you say, what if I have a spill? Mm-hmm. And that's why we now have that contingency 3-layer plan for oil spill, multi-layer, tier 1, how do you do it? Tier 2, how do you do it? And we've entered arrangements now with Tanzania at tier 3. Should we have any problem we can't handle, Tanzania comes in, we also come in.
Okay. Ali and Tony, gentlemen, are going to take a break. When we come back, let's look into the local content. Money can come in from Paris, from wherever, but how much of that money is actually going to stay in Uganda? Money can hit on our accounts and then go back. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests this evening are all from the oil and gas sector. I have Tony Otoa, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Uganda National Oil Company, and Ali Ssekatawa, Director, Legal and Corporate Affairs, Petroleum Authority of Uganda. We're discussing status and future of oil and gas in our country. Tony, I wanted to know, because we're talking about big monies. Sometimes people talk about $20 billion supposed to come in the investment phase. And I'm wondering, how much of that money can actually stay in Uganda. There is this local content policy.
Right.
How much of the Ugandan people are taking advantage of the local content, considering this is a highly technological, advanced kind of word, but also it needs big money?
Absolutely, it's very capital intensive. But Patrick, you need to remember one thing. If you look at 10 years ago when we were talking about this sector, 10 years ago, the number of Ugandans who were participating in this sector were very few. If you look at, say, pre-FID, that was pre-February last year, the number of Ugandans who were participating were not as many. Today, we have so many Ugandans participating. And I think, again, in your own paper, The Monitor, if you look at the Monitor newspaper today, it shows you the beautiful story around the revenue that is coming out of the enterprise.
Even before the oil
is coming out. But I think the question here, Patrick, should be, what can we do to enhance this and even make it a bigger story? How can we support local businesses to get into the right situation where they can actually, benefit more from this resource? We need to talk about an oil fund, and my brother here will tell you about the plans to have that oil fund to support local businesses. But also, we need to also make capital cheaper for Ugandans to easily get it. Because again, remember that a Ugandan is going to compete with another farm which is probably getting cheaper capital from its home, from a foreign land. But I think ultimately, if you look at the strides that we have made, we have tried to sensitize a lot of businesses when it comes to oil and gas. And again, UCMP has done a fantastic job. If you think about UCMP from a lobby or from a group that is really pushing the local content agenda, they've done a fantastic job, because what they've done is to bring these local businesses together with the industry players, with the likes of my brother here, Ali, to say, what can we do to make your business or to make you guys thrive in the sector? When we did an industry baseline survey about 10 years ago, one of the biggest challenges for any business was visibility over demand. The lack of information of what's going on, when and where and how. What here we have tried to do is to demystify all of this, and I'm glad that Petroleum Authority has gone ahead to make it mandatory for the oil and gas players to have quarterly supply development workshops where information is shared, the status of the sector is shared, but also we are talking now how we can support businesses in terms of capital to make them operate. Very key.
But the players will come with their demands, quality demands, and and our people may not be able to meet some of those demands. How are you prepared to do that? Because I understand right now, at one point, even the food that was being eaten, I don't know whether sausages or whatever, or chips, some of these things are flying in from abroad, and I'm wondering, local Banyoro can actually produce this.
Kamara, you're talking from a very academic point. The food right now is being supplied from the communities. Stanbic Bank Incubator ran a very successful model in Bunyoro where they took people through.
And this was Tony's baby, I remember.
Yes.
In his other life.
The products
you have seen these.
are visible. In terms of standards, yes, the industry is high standard, but also highly regulated. Because we made national content a pillar, a deliberate pillar, unlike other sectors in Uganda. And I believe that if the other sectors came on board and used the same principles or better ones, I think we can take this country to another level.
But Ali, there's also a possibility that, for example, a Portuguese company, I'm told, can come to Uganda if it has been operating here for 2 years, registered here for 2 years or something like that, then it is looked at as a Ugandan company. And some of those companies or businesses that you may think are Ugandan, well, they're just Ugandan legally, but in actual sense, they are not.
Yeah, in terms of corporate personality, we are looking at substance. Is MTN a Ugandan company or Daily Monitor here? Because it's owned by Aga Khan.
But the actual thing is that they mobilize resources from Ugandans who are making calls, and the money is sent back to South Africa.
Exactly. So would you want to have an advert for newspapers and you say Daily Monitor is not Ugandan? Because Daily Monitor pays taxes, it pays power, it pays Kamara, it consumes all the food here, and it is a corporate citizen here. So based on that test of Daily Monitor or MTN, yes, certain entities which which operate here at a substantial level will qualify. That is for sure.
You know, you may find in that regard, a company, all they're doing is maybe to go and bring some hardcore, some sand from Luhera and whatever, and put it there. And then, you know what? There, let me say, for example, Montevideo, Uganda, but at the end of the day, it is money going to Lisbon or Madrid.
There is a sheriff in town.
There's a new sheriff in town.
There's a sheriff in town. So, what you're saying, there's a person whose job is every day to make sure that that situation is avoided. If you're a Ugandan company, you must meet the parameters. The example of Daily Monitor, okay? So you will meet, if you're CNN, you will not meet that. But for Daily Monitor, NBS, and so on, we shall not look at who is behind Daily Monitor. We consider Daily Monitor a Ugandan citizen.
How about the skills, so that Ugandan workers can actually contribute and play in this sector? Because again, it's new, again, it's technologically advanced. But how many of our people are going to work on these rigs, especially?
You know, I'll amaze you. You know, whenever we're thinking of oil and gas, we always think of, you know, the very technical part of things, like you've just asked now, rigs. But let me just give you some very interesting statistics, again, which came out of this study. Out of 100%, 1% are people like Ali, okay? People like Ali.
The
14% are your electrical engineers, your civil engineers, your engineers. 60% are your welders, your masons, your plumbers, your technical guys, yeah? And then guess what is interesting? 25%, no skills. You just have to have the right certification when it comes to health and safety, and you're able to provide your services to the sector. And again, if you look at the people that are employed in the sector, in the oil fields or the oil locations, they are local people. The security guards, for instance, the cleaners, the guys who are doing the normal work.
Yes.
So I think emphasis for us here is, can we have people who can be trained to use their skill in the oil and gas sector, but also use it elsewhere? And I'll give you a very interesting story. There's this young man I met called Grace Muchibi. I met Grace Muchibi at the golf club a couple of years ago, I think about 2018, 2017. Grace was taken to welding school during my days at Total. We took him to welding school, and he learned how to weld all the way to 6G. Now, I'm not saying that our welding here is, you know, bad welding, but it's not to the standard, because you have all the way from 1G to 6G coded welding. Grace went and got himself trained with a couple of his friends, about 10 of them. When they left, there was of course no activity happening. They set up a welding facility. I can tell you that right now, Grace is not only looking for employment, but he is actually supplying the oil companies like McDermott with beds, welding beds for them, you know, and that for me is a positive story. That's what we want to see. Moving away from just thinking oil and gas, but also using the skill to support these young people in different areas beyond oil and gas. And these skills, like I must say, a lot of the oil companies are trying to push.
So, but Grace could be an outlier.
No.
Okay. Kamara, maybe, you know, they say numbers don't lie. As we stand today, we have close to 14,000 workers.
Yeah. 14,000 workers.
14,000. From 2020, 1st February 2022, when FID was made, we have 14,000 on the project. And
that's an army of workers down there.
Yes, out of them.
And we're not yet at peak.
Yes, out of them, close to 95% are Ugandans across the whole value chain, from the level of deputy MD, engineering, drilling experts, engineers, and so on, to the lowest person. So the numbers do not lie. The deliberate policies to make sure Ugandans train and be ready can yield result. If you go to the Graben, you will see your brothers. They are fully in charge of the industry.
Ali and Tony, gentlemen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I actually have a question coming in here from Hussein Jiruga Lumumba. I think I'll put it to you, Ali, when we're back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are Tony Otoa, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Uganda National Oil Company, and Ali Ssekatawa, Director Legal and Corporate Affairs, Petroleum Authority of Uganda. Before we took a break, a friend of mine here called Lumumba. Lumumba, by the way, is at one point was first son of this country, because if I remember very well, at one point he probably was even born in State House somewhere. But does he want me to say that? Okay, let me look for the question. Hussein Juruga Lumumba says, first oil, quick question. First oil is projected for 2025. The country's refinery having first rate of supply. Will it be ready for that first oil?
No. The first oil relates to Kingfisher, Tilenga, and ECOP. When we switch on the pipeline production, and then the exit facility at that point will be ECOP. The pipeline is going to be 2 years late because of the refinery, because of the reasons we are talking about. So it is going to catch to find when we have started.
But I don't think at this point you can even put a timeline of 2 years late. Yet you don't have a final investment decision on the issue of the pipeline.
Yeah,
of the refinery.
You're right in a way. Okay, based on our projections now, it will be late by 2 years. So when we say first oil, we mean Tanga switching on the the production facilities in Tilenga and Kingfisher, and then receiving that crude at Tanga. Thank you.
Okay. So I have some callers online. I think let me just involve Ugandans here. They want to speak to you. I have a caller. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Patrick.
Yes.
You're talking to Ekode, live in the center.
Okay, go right ahead, Ekode.
Yes. I want to ask for the helpful insights about this oil sector. And actually, Uganda have really benefited where we hear this oil. However, I'm not sure when the head of state made a statement that this is his oil. I'm trying to figure out where I come in as I'm benefited. Because if gets I'm saying that this is oil for Uganda, but the head of state who mentioned is his oil. Unless the statement is nullified, then I can be safe to be proud of the oil that we have oil out in Uganda. Thanks for the question.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I don't know whether Ekode looks like was saying the president sometimes says it is his oil and something like that. And
under the Constitution, Article 244, all natural resources belong to the people of Uganda, and they are held by government on behalf of the people of Uganda. And therefore, the oil, which is a natural resource, is for the people of Uganda. And that's why we come every day to give you accountability, to give you how far we have gone, how much we have. We always say how much resources we have confirmed, where will the money go in the petroleum fund, and you have rights to know how that money is going to be used.
Okay. Tony, this is going to be big money.
Yes, hello.
And probably it can cause a game change for Uganda. But there's some people saying, well, the money may come in, but also there's a possibility that this oil has already been mortgaged. But I think I have somebody online. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. What's your name and where you're calling from?
I'm called Alonzi Godwilly.
All right.
Within Kampala. I just wanted to know the safety of Ugandans in these stations, first of all. How safe are Ugandans in these places?
Well, you just had the same one. How safe are they? How safe are Ugandans? I don't know in what sense, but probably
during
operations or something like that. You know.
I think that's a very straightforward one. Like Ali said earlier on, it's a very regulated sector. I can tell you for a fact, Patrick, and actually when we take you, you will notice that if you do not have probably your helmet on in an operational area, the work is stopped. So ideally, safety comes first, and safety is always first. So the right...
You have not had accidents there?
There are accidents like any situation, like in any situation, there's some accidents. But I can tell you that the need to mitigate them, the avenues to mitigate these accidents are evident. And again, like Ali said earlier on, when something happens, something of that sort, we use that as a learning curve to make sure that that never happens again. But I can tell you for a fact that the levels of safety are very high, the standards are very high, and like I say, the international safety standards that you have to have, for instance, the right PPE, the right protection while getting into these operational areas.
That you say inside the facilities, but now because of the increased activity in the communities and so on, there are other measures like traffic, road crossing, because there are first-class roads in those areas. There used to be no roads. Kamara invite you to come to the Braben.
I think this time
and now because of that, you will find statistics on roads and so on and issues. But in terms of the facilities inside, whenever there is anything of that nature, it is observed and so on. But those hours were achieved without an accident inside the facilities.
Okay, so before we took a break, I think we have another caller line. Before we took a break, I needed to know whether hello. Okay, hello? I needed to know, Tony, whether the money that we are getting actually will be beneficial. Well, that's more for the politicians to talk. But I am told even the little money that we have gathered just comes out has actually been mortgaged. We've taken so many. The country has taken so many. Have a huge debt. So it's also possible that
Patrick, I think
before we know it, actually the money has been eaten already.
No. I think I think Patrick, is important to talk with facts, because this.
No, we have a huge debt. That's a fact.
No. Yes, that is a fact. But when you say, but when you say, all of the oil money or the oil money has already been mortgaged.
91 trillion Uganda shillings in a debt.
Yes, but you see, Patrick. What we need to understand is that Uganda as a country has many other things even beyond oil and gas. We have tourism, we have agriculture, we have so many other sectors that can actually bring in revenue. Now, as to whether, like you've said, we have mortgaged, I think unless you can bring that fact on the table, I don't think that's actually
in the sense,
what I want to say,
Tony, in the sense that we have such a huge debt, so more or less we seem. But let us see what other Ugandans are saying. You have a caller. Hello. Hello.
Good evening, Patrick. Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening. Go right ahead with your question or comment. First, tell us your name.
Thanks for the show. I would like to know how have they managed the issue of tribalism in the oil sector, also to allocating jobs, because most Ugandans have qualifications, but you cannot get a job there easily unless you're from side A. Thank you.
We have a Ssekatawa, we have an Otoa. Somebody is from Lao, another one is from Uganda, and these are some of the top executives here. But probably they will be able to explain. But the two names here it answers that. Probably go for it.
Okay, Patrick.
We have another. Let me have a call. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Can you be very quick, sir?
This is Swaibu Sebi.
Swaibu.
Yes, I'm calling in Kampala, but from West Nile. Now, we had also an oil exploration around West Nile some years back. I think 2008, 2012. And then up to now, we don't know what's happening, whether there is oil, whether there is no oil, and the company is pulled off.
And Ali is going to respond to you. And by the way, as you make your response, Ali, it's also your concluding remark.
Okay. Tribalism. The industry has deliberately insisted on meritocracy because, as I said, it is as good as aviation. You cannot put your brother as a pilot, otherwise you will all crash. So people are being employed based on their qualifications. We require transparency, adverts, and so on. So I think you can see fairly when you reach there, you will see a fair distribution of all Ugandans. The only bias we've required is that if a three-tier, if it is unskilled labor, you must hire from the local community. For semi-skilled, from around the region, and then for skilled, you go to Ugandan. I mean, to
Those who
the
can
whole
qualify.
of, yeah, for all Ugandans. So we insist on meritocracy in that aspect. About the West Nile and so on, the ministry will announce so far on what the study is being done.
All right.
Thank you.
Tony, your parting shot?
I think it's a very great opportunity in terms of, where the country is going and what we can expect. Before FID, a couple of years ago, it was very difficult to actually see or understand what we're dealing with. But you see, I like the fact that people like Ali and Petroleum Authority have opened up the graben for people to go see for themselves, understand what it's like, but also see ways and avenues to explore the opportunities therein. So I want us to be very optimistic about this. I mean, entities like UCMP have also created a great avenue to have these conversations, and I think that's also the reason we're here. But also, I want you to come and see the great mix of amazing Ugandans at the Uganda National Oil Company doing things for Uganda. I can tell you for a fact, you'll be amazed.
Tony Otoa, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Uganda National Oil Company, thank you so much. Ali Ssekatawa, Director Legal and Corporate Affairs, Petroleum Authority of Uganda. Gentlemen, you've been phenomenal. Thank you so much. I think you're some of the best guys. They grabbed and took to the graben. Guys, I'm coming to the graben. Good night and God bless Uganda.
Thank you.